The clock was ticking. A massive United States military strike on Iran was scheduled to launch within 24 to 48 hours. Then came the whiplash. President Donald Trump abruptly halted the entire operation, completely calling off the strike. The official explanation? The White House claimed the cancellation was an urgent request from Gulf state leaders, pointing to direct interventions from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. But the public messaging immediately contradicted that neat explanation. The media firing off threats of destruction toward Iran, while simultaneously musing to reporters that the war might be put on hold forever, or maybe just for a little while. You don't bounce between catastrophic threats and permanent peace deals in the same afternoon if you have a clear strategy. This rapid pivot points straight to a frantic search for narrative control and a desperately needed political exit ramp, rather than a coordinated push for peace. Trump's actions suggest he is trying to satisfy two opposing forces. He is navigating a narrow path between a base that demands an end to foreign wars and a political identity built on projecting absolute, unquestioned strength. Iran knows exactly how to play this. They've stepped to the podium, led by figures like President Masoud Pezeshkian, to declare they are willing to talk. But they are making it fiercely clear that sitting down for dialogue does not equal surrender. It's a domestic trap on both sides. The US administration needs a clean political win to tout back home. Meanwhile, Iranian leadership is under immense internal pressure from its citizens and military hardliners to project absolute, unflinching strength. The threat of missile strikes has given way to a high-pressure fight for the public narrative. In this theater, victory isn't measured in territory, but in who manages to avoid the label of the one who blinked. To secure this optical victory, the US has laid out its primary condition for a permanent peace agreement. Iran must not acquire a nuclear weapon. Here we see an Iranian nuclear facility, the exact type of infrastructure at the center of these demands. The second condition demands a guarantee for the unimpeded flow of global commerce through the Strait of Hormuz. Look at this massive oil tanker. It represents why this specific waterway is non-negotiable. Roughly 20% of the entire world's crude oil and liquefied natural gas supply passes through this single geographical choke point. But here is where the diplomatic reality kicks in. Iranian diplomats, like Abbas Araghchi shown here, have maintained for years that their nuclear program is strictly for peaceful energy purposes, not weapons. The US is drawing a hard line on a demand that Iran claims it is already fulfilling. It's a highly calculated move. It gives the US administration the ability to manufacture a clean, public victory without ever having to fire a shot. Iran is fully aware of this dynamic and is exploiting its leverage. Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Ismail Baghai has made it clear they are approaching the negotiating table with a heavy list of their own demands. Let's weigh these conditions on this scale. On one side, the US demands. On the other, Iran is laying down massive financial prerequisites, the total unfreezing of their foreign assets, and the complete removal of US economic sanctions. They aren't stopping at economics. Iran is demanding war compensation and a complete Israeli ceasefire in Lebanon, tying regional conflicts directly to these negotiations, as evidenced by the ongoing strikes we see here. Iran is aggressively leveraging the threat of a wider regional war to extract maximum economic and geopolitical concessions from a US administration that is clearly desperate to withdraw. On paper, the military disparity between the two nations is absolute. Yet, despite possessing the world's most advanced strike capabilities, Washington chose to pause a confirmed attack and engage with a list of heavy Iranian demands. This map illustrates the Mosaic Doctrine. Instead of centralizing military targets, Iran scattered them into hundreds of decentralized nodes. A concentrated American strike wouldn't neutralize these capabilities. Instead, it would trigger a multi-front, asymmetrical retaliation, raining down on neighboring regions and vital waterways. This deeply entrenched, uncollapsible military structure ensures that a quick, clean US military victory is impossible. The sheer cost of a protracted conflict is what ultimately forced Washington's hand toward diplomacy. Now the conflict shifts from the battlefield to the negotiating table. High-level talks are expected to materialize within the week, likely in neutral diplomatic theaters like Geneva, Oman, or Pakistan. As the venue changes, so do the alliances. The US is experiencing increasing diplomatic friction, finding itself isolated as traditional NATO allies signal their reluctance to support further escalation. Contrast that diplomatic isolation with Iran's physical posture. Their military commanders remain fully mobilized, publicly warning that any U.S. miscalculation or sudden aggression will be met with overwhelming force. Iranian leadership has even adopted a bold narrative shift, publicly claiming that any retreat or so-called surrender in this scenario will ultimately have to come from Washington, not Tehran. True peace has not been achieved here. The Middle East has entered a volatile holding pattern. The weapons are temporarily quiet, but diplomacy has been weaponized to project absolute strength.